You wake up. It's cold. Your knees hurt from sleeping on rock. There's smoke in the air. And for the first time in the history of your entire species, you're about to breathe it in on purpose.
This isn't a metaphor. This actually happened. Somewhere, at some point, one human, a real person with a real name we'll never know, was the first to inhale burning plant matter into their lungs and think, that did something. Today, we're living that moment.
Before we light anything, let's set the scene properly, because the real story is stranger, older, and weirder than you'd think. Fire itself is old, really old. Early humans and even earlier hominins were controlling fire at least 400,000 years ago. Some evidence suggests over 1 million. But controlling fire for warmth and cooking is one thing. Deliberately breathing in smoke from a specific plant because you want the effect it gives you, that's a completely different invention. And it took a very long time to arrive.
For hundreds of thousands of years, fire was a tool. Then, somewhere along the way, humans started noticing something. Certain plants, when burned, didn't just make smoke. They made you feel different. Dizzy, relaxed, sometimes strange visions. Somebody, somewhere, connected those dots.
Now, here's the thing. We can't know exactly who this person was, or exactly when it happened. There was no camera, no written record. What we do have is physical evidence, buried in the ground, that survived thousands of years. And that evidence tells us the story starts earlier and in more places than most people assume.
So let's put you back in the scene. You're not a modern human with a lighter and a pack from a gas station. You're standing at one of the actual turning points in this story. Let's pick the best documented one, a mountain cemetery in western China, around 2,500 years ago. You are here for a funeral. Someone important in your community has died, and your people have carried wooden boards up into these mountains, over 3,000 meters above sea level, to bury them properly. This is the Pamir Plateau. The air is thin. The wind never really stops. At the burial site, there's a wooden brazier, basically a shallow fire bowl, already set up. Someone places stones inside it, heated in a nearby fire until they're glowing. Then, into that bowl go plant materials, seeds, stems. This isn't cooking. Everyone knows that. This is something else. As the seeds hit the hot stones, smoke rises, thick, sharp-smelling, unlike ordinary wood smoke. You lean in, along with everyone else gathered around. This is a shared moment, not a solo one. And that matters. This isn't recreational. It's ceremonial. You're here to feel something together as part of honoring the dead. You breathe it in, and it hits different than regular smoke. Your head feels lighter. Sound seems to stretch slightly. This is cannabis smoke, and not the mild kind. Scientists who studied residue from sites just like this one at Jirzankal Cemetery found the chemical signature of cannabis with unusually high THC content. Someone, it seems, was already selecting or growing more potent plants on purpose. This is dated to around 500 BCE. That's roughly 2,500 years ago, and it's currently the oldest, strong physical evidence we have of humans deliberately inhaling smoke from a psychoactive plant. Not proof of the very first time it ever happened, just the oldest proof that's survived and been found. The real first time is lost, somewhere in the tens of thousands of years before this, unrecorded. But cannabis wasn't the only plant humans figured this out with. On the complete opposite side of the planet, an entirely separate story was unfolding, with a plant that would eventually change the world more than almost any other. Now you're someone else. Different time, different continent. You're in the Americas, and depending on which estimate you go by, tobacco use here may stretch back an astonishing 5,000 years or more, especially in the Andes region of South America. You pick a leaf. It's broad, slightly sticky, with a sharp smell. Your people have learned, through who knows how many generations of trial and error, that drying and burning this leaf does something. Focuses the mind, numbs pain, connects you to something bigger than yourself in ceremony.
Unlike the Jirzankal brazier, here you might roll dried leaves together or pack them into a hollow reed or a carved stone pipe. Archaeologists have found pipes and tobacco residue across the Americas, dating back thousands of years. Some of the oldest tobacco pipe evidence found in places like Peru and Ecuador.
You light it from the fire. Inhale. And this feeling is different from cannabis. Sharper, more stimulating, less dreamlike. Nicotine hits fast. Your heart rate picks up slightly. Your senses feel switched on.
This wasn't casual either. In many indigenous American cultures, tobacco was, and still is for many communities, deeply sacred, used in prayer, healing, diplomacy, and connecting communities to the spirit world. It wasn't a habit. It was a relationship with a plant that was treated with respect.
Two totally different continents, two totally different plants, two totally different reasons, but the same basic discovery. Burn this, breathe it in, feel something change. That pattern, plant, fire, smoke, effect, it turns out humans found it again and again, independently, all over the world.
There's a third path worth knowing, even though it doesn't fully fit the smoking pattern at first. Around 3400 BCE, in ancient Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, there's evidence of opium poppy use. The Sumerians reportedly even had a word for it that's been translated as something like joy plant. But here's the twist. Early opium use was mostly eaten or drunk, not smoked. The specific act of smoking opium, the way people picture it, through a pipe, vaporizing it, really only became widespread much later, especially from around the 1600 CE onward, after tobacco pipes had already spread around the world and people started experimenting by combining the two ideas. This actually matters for our story because it shows something important. Smoking as a specific method, burning something and inhaling the smoke on purpose, spread and evolved unevenly. Some cultures figured it out early. Others adapted existing plants into that method centuries later, once the idea itself had traveled.
And it's worth saying clearly, humans may have been inhaling smoke from burning plants for ritual, medicinal, or even accidental reasons for tens of thousands of years before any of this. Wood, resin, herbs thrown on a fire, that kind of smoke exposure is almost as old as fire itself. What's rare is finding physical proof. Seeds don't survive well. Residue fades, wood rots. The Jirzankal find is special because the high-altitude, dry conditions actually preserved the evidence.
Let's go back to you, the very first person, whoever they really were, wherever they really were. No name, no record, just a human next to a fire, noticing smoke drifting from a particular plant and deciding, out of curiosity or accident, to breathe it in.
Maybe it happened by accident first. Someone cooking near a wild plant that happened to be psychoactive. Noticing the smoke made them feel strange and remembering that feeling. Maybe it was deliberate experimentation, testing different plants the way people tested different foods. We genuinely don't know. But the outcome is the same. A discovery that a species could have simply never made, but did.
And once that discovery happened, even just once, in even just one place, it didn't stay contained. Word spread. People moved. Trade routes carried seeds and habits along with goods. Over centuries, then millennia, smoking spread from isolated ritual practices into medicine, religion, diplomacy, and eventually, much later, into mass consumer habit.
It's strange to think about. Something as simple as breathing in smoke on purpose became one of the most widespread human behaviors in history, tied to religion, medicine, addiction, war, trade, and eventually massive global industries, all traced back to individual nameless people.
So, quick recap of where the real evidence actually points. Cannabis smoke inhalation, strongly evidenced at Jirzankal Cemetery in China around 500 BCE. Tobacco use in the Americas, potentially stretching back 5,000 or more years, especially in the Andes, though smoking methods specifically developed and varied by region and era. Opium, used since roughly 3400 BCE in Mesopotamia, but mostly eaten or drunk early on, with smoking as a method emerging much later, really taking off from the 1600 CE onward.
And the honest, important caveat: none of these are definitely the very first time any human ever smoked anything. They're the oldest evidence we found and confirmed so far. Archaeology is still an active, evolving field. New digs, new dating techniques, and new residue analysis could push these dates back further, or reveal entirely new locations we don't know about yet.
What's clear is this: somewhere, sometime, a real person, not a myth, not a legend, an actual human being, was the first. They didn't know they were making history. They were just curious. And that curiosity, multiplied across thousands of years and thousands of separate human choices, shaped rituals, medicine, economies, and habits that are still with us today.
If you found this as fascinating as I did digging into it, let me know in the comments which ancient discovery you want turned into a POV video next. And if you want more real history told through stories like this one, make sure you're subscribed. See you in the next one.